Hi, I'm Jamie Flinchball, and as many of you have been following, we've been talking about trust all year long, both before and during the pandemic. I did a book review on the book Trust, How to Put It Back in Business, to build on that theme. And so to go even deeper, we've invited the author, Todd Welch, a good friend of mine, to come on and talk about trust. So, Todd, welcome, and why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, hi, Jamie. It's good to be together as always. And my background is I've really been involved in like you, I guess, been an entrepreneur most of my life. I'm interested in entrepreneurship. I'm particularly interested in helping young people with entrepreneurship. And the subject of trust is a huge topic for me. I've made it kind of my life work and literally I would call it work because I don't think anybody has the ownership of trust. It's an ongoing process. And but I'm mostly excited just to be here and talk with you for a little while. So thanks
Yeah,
for
that's fantastic. And everybody has their own personal values and things that are important to them, whether it be integrity or relationships or anything. But why trust? Why did you kind of hone in on that and make it the centerpiece of who you are, what you did?
because in my opinion, it's the most important thing in the world. It's like it becomes, if you think about it, it becomes, do you trust? And this is where I started from, as opposed to a business perspective. I started from like, who am I? What am I all about? Do I trust myself enough to be all of who I am, and to learn about it, and to put it out in the world and let people, judge it or not judge it? And so that was where I started from. That was the place. It wasn't necessarily, although my father was so big on your word is your bond, and like the things you'd normally think about with trust. It's like, I'm going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do. I'm going to treat people with respect. And so all those things were where, I got, that's my background with my family business and my father. But mine got kind of very personal. Like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I trying to accomplish? And can I express who I am in the world and trust that that's going to be okay? And so that's where I eventually went around, talked to a lot of very interesting people, met some of the most interesting people that I could imagine. I wrote a book, made a movie, and got to hang out with you.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think everybody has to be clear about who they are, especially in all their endeavors. But I do think for entrepreneurs it becomes particularly important because your personal brand often becomes the company brand in one way or another. And so what your company brand is often shaped by who your personal brand is and who you are. And so that's a good thing to be clear about before you go off and start companies.
Yeah, well, and maybe said slightly, I agree, and said slightly, and maybe a different angle would be, aren't entrepreneurs really expressing who they are by putting their company, by creating a company and putting a product out into the world? I mean, it's really you expressing your art, what you care about, what you love, and you're expressing yourself into the world. So if you know who you are, it makes that go a little bit better, a little bit smoother.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So getting into your work on trust, I have here the sort of core model that you developed as
Yeah.
part of the book and the research. So tell me about, there it is on a nice reminder card.
There you go.
Tell me about the development of that model. How did that model come about as a way to frame trust and its different levels?
Well, it started out because we developed something called the trust towel. I was at a meeting when I was, one of the things that we did in our business was we formed insurance companies. So we would bring 12 different companies into a room, and we'd say, okay, if you all were willing to hire good people, abide by good safety practices, you probably can outperform the industry. And so would you be willing to put your money in the table with these other people and form an insurance company? And what we found is that, talk about trust, here you got to make sure the other guy isn't going to have hire someone or not fix their brakes or do something that might cost everybody $1 million. And so we started out with, when I was one of the very first, talking about, having my father and his connection to trust. He said to me, Todd, you can't do this with people that compete with each other. You can only do it with like municipalities or nonprofits. And so when your father says you can't do something, you got to prove him wrong. You got to prove him wrong. So I brought together these truckers out of New York City and toughest group I could think of. These are waste haulers out of New York City and New Jersey, and put them in a Marriott hotel and tried to create this partnership. And he was right. I thought at the end of the meeting, the one guy stood up and said, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit in the same room as that guy. His father firebombed our truck in 1962. And so we had this thing. We came back into the next meeting. My brother and I sat down. We wrote, on a napkin. We drew a bull and put a line through it and said, that's bullshit. Excuse my French, but that's bullshit. That doesn't have anything to do with what's going on today and who these people are. And so we went back into the room with our little napkin and said, let's just tell the truth. Come on, we could, argue we had the right people here or not. And that little napkin turned into something called the trust towel, which there's got to be 50,000 trust towels out in the world right now, which has 6 icons on it. And maybe if we edit this, we can show it here, Jamie. I don't know, we can pull it off the web. But one of the icons was a bull. One of them was don't talk behind people's back. Another one was being respectful. Another one was no surprises. And we had all of these events, all these little icons, come together. And the problem was they were all things. This is where I'm getting back to your original question. This is what's going back to, why this trust scale. Everything we had was don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And it was all the negative. So the question was, is there something that was positive? And what was the opposite of all the things you shouldn't do? What was the opposite of that? And so then we started saying, well, wait a minute, there's a scale here. We started putting them on a graph and said, this is how there's the highest level of trust, which in my opinion is when 2 people get together and create something. Now, you could say a man and a woman get together and create the ultimate thing, which would be a baby, right? You can't do that by yourself.
Right.
And it's free, by the way, until, it's in a lot of ways. But, and then the worst thing you could do is, and we thought was the worst thing you could do is to ignore somebody. And then there's everything in between, like, completely say, you are such a bad human being and you're so worthless that we won't even acknowledge that you exist. And so the thing you could do that would be the highest level in this trust scale would be get together in the ultimate partnership. And the thing you could do that would be the worst would be to ignore the person and that they even exist. And so there's this trust and respect that we thought, and there's all in between,
right.
And that we thought was important. So is that too long of an answer to your short question?
No, that's perfect. And I like I like how it kind of came out of need and came out of questions, one spurred on by the next. And I found, as I said in my book review, the model useful because I think when a lot of people talk about trust, they kind of bounce around either side of zero. So a little bit of broken trust or a little bit of trust, but really exploring what you can do to scale up and get to that create phase requires deliberate effort. It's not just sort of, hey, I'm a little positive over zero. And I think it really challenges people to think deliberately about how they can build that level of trust. And so I guess my question then to build on that is, as you've published it in a book, especially through people's reactions, what have you learned how people react to the model and the content and the message?
Well, I think everybody, Walt Disney once said that, it doesn't take a lot of words to know the truth, right? And I think when there's a good idea, it's very apparent to everybody. And so when you talk about trust, everybody gets it. You don't have to, even children get it. Old people get it. You don't have to be an age, a sex, and even the culture. Everybody gets it. It's important, and they know. And if I could just expound on that for a little bit, is that in my view, Jamie, that we all are put on in this world. We're all put in this. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. I think this is important stuff. I feel like my experience is I'm put into this world in this body, which is got skin. I'm filled with fluid, right? And the world says, just by the way, at any given time, particularly right now, there's these little tiny viruses that could get into your eye or your nose or your mouth and completely destroy your life, right? You can get, and by the way, if you're driving a car or you could get hit by something and it's all over, and then the ground could open up underneath you. It happens around the world. And, you know, by the way, there's things that come out of the sky and we don't know when it's going to happen. It might take you out. Not to mention that if you're in school and someone says you got a big nose, you feel terrible for like the rest of your life. You're ruined, right? So you're put in this incredibly vulnerable position of this body and of this in this life, and you don't know where you came from, and you don't know where you're going. And some people may have different beliefs around that, but for me, I don't know where I came from. I don't know where I'm going. And so trust it's like, at least I can trust the people around me, you know, that to watch out for me and that make sure I don't get hurt financially, socially, spiritually, physically. And so this trust issue becomes really, really important. And so I think everybody recognizes instantly, but they also know that we're all here and we're trying to survive. And so we tend to be willing to, not intentionally, but hurt other people to make ourselves feel safe. And that's where the problems happen in business and in families and in relationships. And so we're trying to all feel safe. And so we break trust all the time to try to feel safe. And the irony is the only way that we're really safe is if we can build trust with each other. Mm-hmm. It's just an incredible irony. It seems so strange that we're put in this world to learn, and in my mind, to learn that one thing.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that's a great perspective. It's, you know, there's only so many things we can control, and we can't control trust, but we can control our actions as they contribute to trust. And that's a very controllable thing. How we invest ourselves in those relationships. So you know, I wrote a book. I was a public speaker. I was a consultant, advisor, teacher. It kind of fit very well into what I was doing. You've had all sorts of endeavors as an entrepreneur over the years. So why a book and why a movie? Why decide to invest in putting your thoughts into that form? What was the thinking behind that?
I was just following your model. I figured Jamie can do it. Jamie can do it. I can do it. I should probably do it. You know, I think we all want to be of some significance, you know, that our lives mean something to other people. So we're kind of defined in a way by the way that the memories that people have of us and what we've contributed, why we're here. And so to me, it was a way of trying to be significant. Hi, Lil.
Kathleen. I'm gonna say hello.
Okay. You know, to me, it was a way to try to feel significant by contributing, and then and I think it's the same thing we're doing here in this video and sharing with people is that, you know, can we help other people? It gives us a sense of value in our lives. Again, why are we here? You know, what are we trying to accomplish?
No, I think that's great. I mean, books certainly have a marketing attribute, but in a lot of ways, I wrote it because instead of a thousands of dollars way to access what I was trying to share with the world, I created a $30 version of that and just get it in the hands of more people. So the book's been out a long time. Lots of people have read it. You've moved on to different projects and just wondering, how do you use the model, the tools, the thoughts now? How does it enter into your day-to-day life?
It's an everyday thing. When I think about you, if I can bring you into this a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, we've been friends for a while, quite a while, and I admire you. I admire the work that you've done. I admire the way that you go about it. But you've had your challenges in partnerships, as have I, in life. And more recently, you know, I lost my brother, who's been my partner, who's the most, I don't want to say only most trusted, but if there was ever trust, you know, we lived it, and we had a couple of difficult times right before he passed, which I'm, you know, it's like, oh my God, we didn't quite get to clear things up. So, so I think about that. Like, I didn't get it right with him exactly. We got it right our whole lives, but you know, at the end it would have been great to go out with a crescendo versus like, we didn't quite finish that conversation, you know. So, and then as a result of that, I had to take over a good part of his business, and And there was a lot of fear, tremendous fear, because everybody trusted him. And then I walked into it, and not everybody trusted who's the brother. And I had a really hard time with a number of partnerships, and some of them didn't go as much as I tried. And I'm the trust guy. I wrote a book. I got a movie. I got the whole thing. But you know what? I didn't get it right, or I tried my best. It didn't turn. I think those people, some of those folks, might say that I don't know that how much how strongly I feel about it. So I think I'm trying really hard every day to learn about myself and how I interact, and to be as honest and straightforward as I possibly can. But it doesn't, even at that, even the guy that studied this for 3 years and wrote a book and did a movie doesn't get it right all the time. But I keep fighting with it. So I just want to encourage you and other people to keep working at it, and and don't feel, I guess I kind of feel like I could have, I could have or should have done better, but I think it's a constant, it's not like you get it right and you're done. It's an everyday battle, right? It's an everyday battle with your employees. It's an everyday battle with your significant other, and your family, and with the government and everybody else is trying to control us, right?
Yeah, and I think that idea of every action you take, all you can do is, even if you decided not to take action, it's going to affect the trust, right? So every decision you make affects the trust, and to be mindful of that, where every conversation, decision, action, reaction is an opportunity. And are you mindful about the impact it can have on those key relationships? Especially in those moments, those points of inflection, whether they be personal or societal or organizational, certainly becomes key.
Absolutely.
So
I trust you, Jamie. Did I tell you that?
I trust you as well. we created in the past together. So
we created a couple. We created the Lehigh Valley Angel Network together, which was
yes,
great.
we did.
It's still going, and it's helped a lot of people start their own businesses. And we worked on the iCoke Institute together, where we help young people, and so it's been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've done, I kind of approached it from a different angle, but I did some of my own research and study and articulation around trust. Came up with a model I call the 4 C's of trust. So I want to ask you, just for your reaction, I articulated what I call 4 C's of trust. So the demonstration of care, the communication of context, or the why, the competence to deliver on the promises that you make, and the consistency to do that every day, as we were just talking about. So just curious, of those 4 C's, in your experience, your research, which of those do you consider the most valuable as an investment in trust, and why?
Oof, that's a good question. You could do this for a living. Well, I won't say what's the most important for you or for anybody else, but those are all important issues, right? I mean, you could care and love all you want a person, but you're not going to put them in the pilot seat if they're not competent, right?
Right.
And you can care and love and all the people you want, but if they're not consistent, if they can't deliver their own, then you don't trust. And then there's people that don't have empathy, and it's even if they're competent and they're consistent, you don't trust them, because they just don't have your interest at heart. So I think you've nailed it with them being together. I always start from the heart. I kind of feel like that's my place, because I feel like it's fundamental to our existence. Like if you don't care about other people in the world, and it's hard for me to trust you, no matter how competent you are. So I always start at that place. But I think all 3 of those things are critical.
Yeah, and I think
did a good job.
That's the fundamental idea behind it, is they do all matter, but starting from the heart, the demonstration of care is where probably the most common answer to what mattered most to people. So that concludes my questions. Just wondering if you had any closing thoughts before we wrap up.
Well, I'm kind of curious about, if I can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about how much given all you've been through with your business, kind of why you think it's important. in your life. I mean, I don't want to limit to, giving all of who you are and the very interesting, competent, caring, consistent person that you are. Why are you writing about this, and why do you care about it? And why are you interviewing me today? Why do you care about it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think there's two answers to that. One is just sort of, in my work to help companies build the right culture and operating systems. I found it as an ingredient that led to success or failure, and so that was a more academic reason to go deeper into it, so that I had a more articulate things to say other than trust matters, because I felt that was not enough. To provide my people I coach and advise. On a personal level, I think I've learned too many times that good intentions can not delivered upon can destroy trust, and that bad intentions, even when they're just not there and you can't trust in those intentions, even if every other element is there, is not enough. And so, to me, I've continually been reminded when I go, I'll say, astray or lax in remembering the importance of that ingredient, and learn the lesson a few times, either poorly analyzed trust, misplaced trust, or taking trust for granted. And so I've certainly learned to be more deliberate on a daily basis around my delivery in the relationships that I form. So that's been my thought. So
Yeah. Well, you've done a good job with our relationship, so I appreciate it.
thank you very much, and appreciate you doing the interview.
Yeah.
We'll share this very soon, and have a great day.
All right, Jamie. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Fun.